Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Soul Centered CEO Show. I'm so excited to be back with you this week and also to be joined by my special guest, David Delisle. Welcome, David.
Hello.
So glad to have you. I want to share a little bit, David, about your background, just so that way people know know a little bit more about what you've been doing and what you're up to in the world and the magic that you are creating. You have been and are a successful entrepreneur, financial advisor, marketing director, real estate investor, and most importantly, a dad. I love that so much. You've been investing since you were 11, and you're passionate about passing on the lessons you've learned to teach kids how to live a rich life and create the freedom for what's the most important to them, the awesome stuff. I love it. I'm so excited to have you today. And just to dive in, because I think what's been so beautiful for me to watch kind of your journey over just the last year. I mean, I haven't known you forever, but I love how passionate you are about bringing this wisdom and this really just grounded financial advice to not only the masses, but specifically to kids. And I know that you've got a huge project, and we're going to talk all about what you're bringing into the world. But would you want to just take a minute to share a little bit about why and how you got so inspired to teach kind of this financial literacy, financial wellness, but also with your special twist of like just focusing on the awesome stuff? I'd love to hear the story.
Yeah, it's a funny story because it really has evolved. It's something that I feel like I fell into or was almost like just called to rather than something that I sought out. And it sort of originated with just a basic sort of seed of an idea of, my boys are getting older, and just that idea of like, what type of wisdom or information do I want? Like, what would I like to pass down?
Yeah.
Um, and especially with some of the stuff that, is intergenerational. So I was sort of, playing with ideas and what's important, and just almost like a little, book for them. Maybe not even a storybook, just notes. But as I was doing it, I was realizing how much of it was around how different my views around money are. And so in that process, then I started looking at, okay, well, I need to start teaching some of these things to them. I should find some resources to learn about this, because it's one of those things that it does weigh on a lot of people. I mean, money is one of the number one stressors in life, relationships, everything. So that's sort of what I was wanting to do is take that off the plate for my guys. And I just found there wasn't a lot out there. And that's when I started playing with the idea of actually putting this down on paper and coming up with a book. And again, in my head, I was still just thinking book, boring written book. Here's like all these rules and whatever. But it's funny because at the same time, I love how you mentioned, like, most importantly, a dad. I do love being a dad and being involved with my kids in their school. And I'm really lucky because at their school, you're able to volunteer at the library, and which is really exciting because then you could be in there and sort of see the kids, interact with them, but do all those sort of librarian tasks that anyone can do. So the librarian can actually teach the kids, read to them, do other things. So I'm sitting behind the desk, just checking out books, just the menial stuff. But in doing that, I'm interacting with the kids. And it's so funny because they keep coming with these graphic novels. And every time the teachers are like, only one graphic novel, make sure you have a regular chapter book, or that's too many. And but that's what the kids love. And it's not like what I remember when I was a kid. Like, I read comics and did all that when I was a kid, but it's so much different now. I mean, they've got graphic novels on anything, which is just amazing. And it's just a really good medium to teach and pass on information. And that's almost immediately, once that seed started germinating, that's when it came up with how exciting it would be to make this whole thing into a quest to learn these lessons and pass it on to kids. And that's how the book really became a book.
Yeah, I love it so much. And I love the creativity in the delivery, right? Because, kids want things that are fun. Like, grown-ups want things that are fun, right? Like, who doesn't? And so I think it's so cool that you've created a way to deliver these teachings but make them available and exciting and entertaining, not like boring and, you got to do this. I think I love that you've been able to infuse that creativity in it as well. So great. So did you kind of like test run on your own kids? Like, hey, what do you think about this chapter? Like, did you have to run it through and have them give feedback, or did you just like wing it and decide you're going to go for it?
For sure. And that's what was so fun. Like I could run different things through them,
Yeah.
see what stuck, what didn't, what was fun. And the reality is I'm like a lot of the creativity, I mean, my boys are so much more creative than I am. So a lot of the really cool ideas, the fun stuff, that's from them. So I always knew what I wanted to teach
Yeah.
and what that should be. But I found that like the real struggle was taking that and simplifying it and just packaging it in a way that people got. And
Yeah.
that's been the struggle. Like the idea was easy,
Yeah.
the lessons were easy. How to make that sort of fun and exciting and come
Accessible.
along.
Yeah.
Exactly. And especially because as you mentioned, like I was that kid who always loved investing and read investment books like at a young age.
Right.
And so I know when I talk about it to people that they hate it and their eyes gloss over and nobody is interested.
Right.
But knowing that as well, so I've been in the weeds and all the stuff that people usually think about when they think of investing in money,
Yeah.
that's the stuff I like. So I've been in those weeds with you know differences between a stock or a bond or different international markets, like all the boring stuff.
Right.
But what I've realized now looking back is I enjoyed that, but that's not what makes the difference or moves the needle. It's just noise.
Yeah.
And it really is habits and mindset
Right.
more than anything. And that stuff anyone could get behind. So even in the book, I talk about like there's no math, there's no budgeting, there's no charts. There doesn't have to be like all those details that we think we need to know,
Yeah.
we just don't. And
Right.
it's not important.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And, habits and mindset, that's pretty much everything, isn't it? Everything worth working for or having, right? Either it's healthy lifestyle or abundance, financial wealth, all of those things. It's just, it's all comes down to that, doesn't it?
exactly. And that's where I just found everything else is like I keep using the word noise because or the term noise because that's what it is. And that's what bogs people down. They're like, okay, well, if I'm going to do this, well, I don't know enough, or should it be this type of investment or this stock, or should I just buy Apple or whatever it might be? And it just at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. That's not going to make the big difference. But starting a habit or just the way you view money and having that mindset, those make such a huge difference. So as you mentioned with the kids, everything that I write in the book, there is a part of me that's hoping adults will read it. It's written like I wrote it with an adult lens, so even reading it, a lot of it will come across as complex for kids because I sort of took a complex idea, simplified it, but it's got all the seeds of this complex idea. So it's for it is for any age. But what I found is what's great is the kids, they haven't learned anything about money. They don't have any strong feelings, positive or negative around it. It doesn't charge them. It doesn't. So talking to them, they get it so quickly, which is so cool. And then that sticks with them. So before they start, having all these things in their mind, all these limiting beliefs or this yearning or that'll never be me or anything, I can get to them, teach them these lessons, and those just stick with them. So that's really rewarding. And that's where when you mentioned the passion, so it was just an idea of just passing on some of this stuff. But as I started seeing that happen and how much that mindset is something that most kids don't learn or get, that's where the passion started coming through.
I love it. It's so powerful, and especially to learn those things at that age, right? I think it's amazing what a life you can create if you learn those simple lessons at a young age. Talk about the awesome stuff.
So the awesome stuff, and that's the sort of first lesson and where it all sort of hinges off. And what I found is when we think about what's happened is we we teach our kids to save And the reason we're teaching them to save is to buy more stuff. And so we feel like we're doing the right thing, and we are. Saving is amazing, but then they get caught up in, I'm saving for more, which then as you get older, there's always more. So you're stuck in this constant, I need more, I need more, I need more. And the awesome stuff is just a slight reframe. And the thing is again, money has so many, it's so charged for people, and there's so much judgment. And this is judgment free. So the awesome stuff is whatever you determine is the awesome stuff. But the real key difference is just being aware that everything's a choice. And that's what I think a lot of us lose. So when you buy something, you're choosing that over something else, either something else to buy or some freedom in some way or time, whatever it might be, there's a cost. And so just being aware of the cost of everything and the choice of everything, that's where it changes. And that's where it gets really exciting, because even the young kids, when I hear back that they're looking at something and rather than saying, don't buy that chocolate bar, save your money, nobody likes being told that. Like they're just going to complain and whine. How do I get this chocolate bar? But if it's phrased as, is this something that's really important to you? Is this your awesome stuff? And for some that will be, but so many then when they see that, where they're like, no, like I don't really care about this. Like I care about, and whatever it might be. So like my older son, he absolutely loves fish and his aquarium and decorating it and doing stuff. Like it's so fun. You see him, like that's sort of his awesome stuff.
Yeah.
But my younger guy, he doesn't like that at all. He's passionate about architecture. He loves the Burj Khalifa. It's the tallest building. Like in his mind, all he wants to do is see the Burj Khalifa, and everything he's looking under that lens of, nope, I don't want to buy that. I want to go to Dubai. I want to see the Burj Khalifa. That's my awesome stuff. And
Wow.
again, there's no right or wrong, but when you're looking at something, if it's something that's something you get excited about and it lights you up,
Yeah.
or it's just stuff.
Right. Well, and what a beautiful lesson for all of us, right? To think about, because I know for me, I'm not a stuff person. I'm more of an experience person, right? So I don't own a lot of things, but I travel and I have beautiful experiences because that is my awesome stuff, right? So, and sometimes you have to decide between, well, do you really need that thing, or kind of take a trip? Like for me, I will always vote for the trip. I'll always choose that. So um, I think that's another level of just knowing yourself, right? And realizing what truly makes you happy and what truly lights you up, because otherwise it's just stuff. So I
Yeah.
love that lesson.
And if it's just stuff, it starts to weigh you down because
Totally.
all that stuff has a cost. So then you run into, an adult age, I wish I could do this. I wish I could do that. Oh, this is what I want.
Yeah.
And the reality is a lot of it's choice, because of the choices we've made, that's why we're not doing what we want to be doing, because it
Right.
all has that cost.
Right. Especially if it's like, if you're financing things, you're this or that, and then you're debt and you're deep in it, right? And you don't have the freedom and the space. One of the most transformative things I've ever done was sell everything I own and leave and travel the world. And it was slightly emotional because you're like, wow, these are my things, and there's nothing wrong with having things. But man, when you go from like, a 2-bedroom condo down to 2 suitcases and a storage unit, and then I finally came back and released and sold all the things in that storage unit, it was just like, it was emotional because I was like, wow, that's such a release of the heaviness of holding all those things, right? And now I've done it a couple of times since then, but it is a very light and a freedom that I don't think you experience once you kind of become a grown up and you get all the things and buy all the things and do all the things. So there is definitely something about the lightness of the load to carry, right?
Yeah. And you probably didn't realize how heavy that load was. And that's the thing. And it doesn't even have to always come down to like money or cost.
Yeah.
Just, if your awesome stuff is freedom and traveling,
Yeah.
having to have a storage space, how's your stuff doing, finding a place to put it, like all of that's going to take up some headspace. And then I know
Absolutely. Absolutely.
yes.
Yeah.
And then I know other people where like I love traveling, but I know other people like that is not their thing.
Yeah.
So they want a room to put all these things, showcase their stuff and the stuff that's really important to them. So it's, again, there's no judgment, but there
Right.
is that cost, because even if it's a collection, like if you're a collector,
Yeah.
I mean, you can't show me a collector that doesn't have their favorite piece and the
Yeah.
thing that they really love. And so if everything else was gone and they just still had that one
That one.
piece,
Yes.
they'd
See,
be
that's
good.
beautiful. Well, and I love your point about it being your definition of awesome, right? Because everyone is unique and everyone has a different thing that makes them happy and provides joy and comfort and stability. Like there's all these different feelings that I think that having things can provide, right? So it's a very interesting difference between personalities and what makes you happy. So again, I love that concept, and I hope that that more and more people, especially after they can read your book, can learn how to differentiate and how not to spend your life buying things if that's not the thing for you. If that's not, because I think the other part too is a society. As a society, we're taught, you grow up, you go to college, you get married, you buy a house, you buy the things to fill the house, whether you can afford it or not. Like there is a very specific path that I think a lot of us were taught growing up, and it's hard to veer off that path, right? But I have to say that whenever I have veered, that has led me to a life that has been so much more rewarding than if I had stayed on the regular route. Does that make sense? Like
For
I probably
sure.
would have been happy, but I'm extraordinarily happy now because I'm not on that same thing. So do you want to share a little bit about if someone, let's say, is kind of feeling the pressure? Like I just spoke a couple of weeks ago to a international business management class at college level. So these are all kids, they're getting their degree, they're going to go into the corporate world, or they're going to get the job and do all the things. And a lot of their questions for me were around, wow, how did you step out of that regular paradigm that we're all taught? Because they're young enough to where it's a choice point, and it's like, are you going to keep going down the path? Are you going to kind of blaze your own trail? What advice would you give people that are kind of in that place of decision points?
So, and I'm noticing this with not just money or the book, or just in general,
Yep.
the big shift, and that's why I was mentioning mindset, is noticing that everything is a choice.
Yeah.
So who you spend time with is a choice. What you spend time doing is a choice. What you choose to buy is a choice. And as soon as you are aware of it being a choice,
Mm-hmm.
then you can make a decision. And the
Yeah.
problem is we're not aware of the choices. So like you said, this path that we get on, it's a path because that's just what you do. We don't question it. That's what everyone does. But the problem with that path, like even if that is your path, there's no end. So that path does not have an end game where, and then you're happy.
Right.
It's just you keep building it and building it and building it until you that's it. You're done and your
Yeah.
life is over. And so it's not even getting off that path. It's starting to just redirect. So the house, like that, you can always find a bigger house. You can always go down that path. And for some people, that is what's important. But you need to really dial that in so that you're not constantly chasing. And that's where the unhappiness, I think, comes in, is we're stuck in chasing.
Oh,
So yeah,
wow. That's good. Yeah. And that creates to me suffering because you never feel like you've got the thing that you desire, you know?
there's always something else. So you're always without.
Right. Oh my goodness.
And so that's why that's why it's become something I'm so passionate about, because that's a piece that we all get stuck in, myself included.
Right.
And it's not until you really start realizing what's important, then you start filling your life with that. So then instead of when you talk about travel, you're not feeling like if you only had more travel, you'd be better. You're thinking, I've filled my life with these amazing experiences. It's hard not to feel full and rich because that's your awesome stuff.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
So
Oh, it is all about choices, isn't it? And mindset. I agree. Um, Tell me what is bringing you joy right now.
So again, I love hanging out with the boys, watching them grow. Like I do really enjoy being
Yeah,
a dad, and I see how, just again with a society that we have and the past we have, dads usually aren't given the freedom to just enjoy being around their kids,
yeah,
because they're typically in a typical sort of scenario, they're the breadwinner, they're out there working,
yeah.
and that's not their role. And so I love seeing that, because they need that masculine and feminine energy. So
Yeah,
that definitely brings me joy. But I also find, like, and I've noticed more during this, the pandemic and everything going on, how important connection is to me. And so I've sought that out. So even during this pandemic, finding you, for example, like,
yeah,
that's something that can be done even during a pandemic, and I need those types of connections
right.
and that type of time to really feel filled for me.
Yeah,
So
I agree. It's everything, really, isn't it? The connection piece for me. Um, and even when especially when we can't be together in real life, being able to connect in this way, and obviously in our soul-centered CEO community, that has been a huge blessing to be part of. Just something that you're not alone, right? That you're on the path with other incredible humans. So it's an absolute pleasure to have you in the collective with us. And I love the work that you're doing in the world. And I think what you just said about parents, specifically dads, having time, right? I think what the bottom line of what you're teaching really is to create that financial stability and freedom, to have the freedom not just of money but of time, because money gives you the option to create more space and time in your life. And so I hope that for those that are listening, they will all dive right in. I think your book is available for pre-sale right now, is that right?
yes, so it's coming out in the fall, but
Mhm.
just like everything during pandemic,
Yeah,
there's
everything's
delays with
delayed.
shipping and printing, but
Yeah,
that's what we're looking for. But you can pre-order now,
yeah.
at the website onlybuytheawesomestuff.com,
Okay.
and learn a bit more about the book, pre-order, get in that list, and
Yeah,
yeah,
just given your community and your energy and your vibe, it's such a lovely um movement that you're creating, and I'm so excited to get the book and to share it and to spread the word, because I agree that if more people could shift into the mindset of just the awesome stuff, I mean, can you imagine how lovely their life would be? And so I'm so excited for that to come out. So we're going to be celebrating with you, and hopefully um, that will just continue to spread and build the momentum. Obviously, we'll put the links in the show notes, so we'll have that available for anyone that wants to dive in to David's work and be part of this movement and revolution that he's creating. So, such a blessing to have you here today, David. Is there anything else that you would like to share with the listeners before we close out today?
no, I mean, that's what we covered. I mean,
That's the
that's
good.
really that's really it, and that's what I get excited about, and having people see that, and I am trying to create that movement,
Yeah,
and make that a bit of a journey, and there's nothing that make, like you talked about, joy, hearing from young readers that have read it
yeah,
and change their patterns or choices,
yeah,
and it's so amazing because they do it, and again, as a parent, we can't judge the choices they make, because they won't do what you want them to do, but just the fact that they're looking at something and considering,
yeah.
to me, that's a huge win.
I agree. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much again, David, for your time today. Always a blessing and pleasure to spend time with you. And we will look forward to the next episode of the Soul Centered CEO Show.